Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. It's time to start your engines because we're going to be racing all around a course today, trying to be the first one to get that checkered flag. Today we're talking about Rush and Bash. This is a game from Quick Simple Fun Games. It's for 2 to 6 players. It's a racing game with all sorts of crazy things going on. We got bombs, we've got missiles, we've got repairing, special abilities. Today we're going to do a rules school. I'm going to teach you how to play the game and set it up so that you don't have to read the rules. So let's get started. Rush and Bash is a racing game for 2 to 6 players, ages 7 and up, where you're going to be trying to go around the course as fast as you can to be the first one to finish. And you'll be trying to avoid obstacles like boulders and bombs, which do chain reaction damage. Each car is unique, has different special abilities, and their own artwork. You'll be playing cards for their effects, like steering around obstacles, or dropping bombs, shooting missiles, upgrading your special abilities, and repairing damage. You'll also be using them to go forward certain spaces. And there's 24 different boards that you can use to set up some custom courses. Some of them use extra pieces, like the suspension bridge to get over the lake. Or a volcano where you're trying to avoid the magma. There's plenty of cars to choose from, and there's simpler rules if you're playing with kids. Let's first set up the board for the first game of Rush and Bash. There's different boards, and they have different numbers and letters. This one says 01-A. If I were to flip this over, it would say 01-B. You're going to grab the 01-A and place it just like this. And just to the left of the tile you just placed, you're going to find 07-A, and you're going to place it just like this. The binoculars will be in the bottom right, and the 07-A will be in the top left. Now just to the right of that 01-A reference tile, you're going to place 03-A, but it's going to be placed sort of upside down, so the 03-A is in the bottom right-hand corner, and the binoculars are in the bottom left-hand corner. So at this point, the board should look just like this. We're going to place 3 more tiles just below all of these 3. So on the right side, just below the 03-A you just placed, you're going to place the 08-A, and that 8A is going to be in the top right-hand corner, and the binoculars are going to be the top left-hand corner, so it does a little turn like this. Now just in the middle on the bottom, you're going to take 04-A. That's going to be in the top left-hand portion of the tile. It's going to be center on the bottom, and the binoculars are going to be on the bottom. And finally, you're going to grab the 02-A tile. It's going to say that on the bottom right-hand side, which means there's going to be binoculars in the top right-hand side, and it will just continue the track. And that's what it should look like when you're done setting up the board for your first race. Next, you're going to find all of the cards in the game and separate them out into 2 decks. The one on the left is the green deck, the one on the right is the red deck. The green deck is also known as the sprint card deck, and the one on the right is known as the rush card deck. You're going to, once they're separated, shuffle each of these decks separately and place them near the table where everyone can reach. Everyone will get to select their color. In this case, we've selected red. You will get a car of that color. You'll also get the player aid of that color. In this case, we are Dragon Breath Fin Fireball. You're going to take the heart token here, and you're going to place it on the furthest heart on your player aid. You're also going to take the star, and you're going to place it at the level 0 on your player aid. The car and the helmet will show you in just a moment what to do with. Next, we'll set up everybody's initial placement. Now here is the starting board, and this is going to be first place, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth if you're playing up to 6 players. Let's do 6 players, and the youngest player gets to be in the first position. Let's say it was just us, it was red. Now when you place in the first position, everyone's going to get 3 cards at the beginning of the game. Whoever's first is going to get 3 of the green sprint cards. So they would place their car here, and they'd get 3 sprint cards. The next player there, then going clockwise from the youngest player now, is going to get here and get 3 green cards, and so on and so forth, going clockwise, where here that player would get 1 red and 2 green, 1 red and 2 green, 1 green, 2 red, 1 green, 2 red. So at the end of the setup there, it might look something like this. Now not only is this the starting line, it's also the finishing line. If you'd like, you can also set up the big 3D sculpture that is the finish line. And here are the parts you'll need: the checkered flag, the 2 triangle pieces that you see here, and the 2 brown stand pieces there. And so I simply just put it together with the 2 big pieces being held on by the small one and the checkered flag on top, and you can just place this right over the finish and start line if you like. Next, you can set up the standing board. There are 2 different boards in the game, and they both have 2 different sides for the different amount of players. Find the board that has the number of players that you're playing with. In this case, we have 6 players, so we got this 6-player board. You then take the helmets of the different drivers of the colors, and you put them in order from first to 6, depending on their colors. So red is first, so red is first. Green is second, all the way to white being last. And of course, the positions of your cars might be different with the colors, but essentially you go first to last here as they go first to last away from the start line. And lastly, we're going to set up some starting obstacles. In the first board that we're about to go to, you'll see 3 possible spots that boulders can be. You're going to take the track die, you're going to roll it. Let's say we got a 3. Anywhere you see a 2+ and 3+ in this example, we would place this because the die is 3. So it is 2 or more, so we place a boulder there. And it's at least 3 or more, so we place a boulder here. We did not place one here because the die is 3, and this says if you have rolled a 4 or more, so this will be blank. Now the object of the game is to be the first person to get all the way around the track through to the finish line and be the winner. Now the flow of the game goes through turns. Each round, each player is going to play one card, and it's going to be in order of the standings. So each of these players are going to play a card, they're going to do what the cards say, and then that's going to be the end of the round. At the end of the round, we will resituate who's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then we'll keep playing rounds like that. So at the beginning of the first round, since red is in first place, they're going to be the first ones to play a card. Now when you play a card, you can play either a red card or a green card. In this case, they chose a green sprint card. They're going to play it face up. Now 2 possible things can happen. Number 1 is each card will have an effect at the very top. This is optional. You don't have to do it, but you can do it. We'll go over what these effects do later. After you've either done that effect or chosen not to, you then will accelerate this amount of spaces in a straight line forward from where you are. You have to go that amount. You cannot choose to go less. Also, if you're going to use this effect, you must do it before you move. In this case, let's not do the effect, and we'll just move 1. So here we move that red card just 1 straight, and remember you can't move less than the number on the acceleration of the card. Now anytime the first card gets to a new board, which in this case is right after the first turn, they're going to roll the track die for the board after that. In this case, let's say they roll a 4. Well then boulders are going to be placed, basically in this case, on all of these spots because they're all 3+, 4+, 4+, 2+, 4+, 4+. And so it would look something like this. Then it would normally be the green player's turn because they're next in standing order because they're the next closest one. So here, let's just say there was an obstacle in front of you like the rock and we played something that was higher than a 1. So even if it was a 2 or anything higher, it would hit this obstacle. So let's talk about what happens when you hit obstacles. So let's say we had played a 3, he would go 1, 2, he would hit this obstacle would be removed from the board, and this car would take damage. Even though the car had more movement, your movement ends anytime you hit any obstacle, and a boulder is an obstacle. And since it took 1 damage, you would move this heart 1 space to the left. So let's say it's the black car's turn, and they're going to go 4 forward. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to crash into the red car. So they're going to crash here. Again, it's an obstacle, so their movement would end regardless of how many they'd move. And the red car, assuming that it's not completely out of damage, meaning it's staying on the track, is going to get bumped 2 forward, which could cause chain reactions and more crashes. Now the car crashing does not go down in damage. In this case, the red car is the one rear-ended, so any car rear-ended is going to lose that damage 1 to the left. Now let's say this yellow car is going forward and they crash into the black car. Now that black car is, assuming it has damage to take, it's going to stay in the race and it's going to go 2 forward, but in its first space forward it hits a bomb. Anytime it collides with the bomb, so of course this player is already going to take a damage because it got rear-ended. Now it's going to take another damage because it just hit a bomb. So this bomb explodes, it goes off the board. This player is going to take a damage, but so is everything adjacent to it, which means this player is going to take a damage, this player is going to take a damage, and this is going to get exploded, and there's a bomb there. Because this bomb explodes everything that's adjacent, now this bomb will explode, which will do damage to the black car again, and to this boulder, and all of this is going to come off just like that. And since this player has no damage left that they can take, they're going to be going what's called off track. And what you do when you go off track is you take your car, which is the red one, it's going to go back, stay in a straight line, back through its closest checkpoint. If they can, they're going the first spot in the same lane just behind that checkpoint. So normally it would go right here. But in this case, if there's a car there or cars all the way back, it'll go back, it'll go to the first unoccupied spot behind the checkpoint in the same lane that they are. If there's more than one car that has gone off track at the same time, you would do the furthest one in the front because that's the current standings. They would go first and then so on and so forth down through people that have to go off track that are later in the standings. And once you've gone off track and you've placed behind that checkpoint, you basically will get all your health back, and you always go up 1 in your star special ability track, which we'll go over later. Now, anytime you're moving in a straight line, if you come across one of these green arrows, you would then just automatically go there as your next spot moving forward. This is considered a forward move, and these work the same way even when you're moving backwards. When you go off track, let's say this player went off track, they had to go back. This green arrow just allows them to go here as they're going back because that's the lane they will be in when they go off track. Each round, once each player has played their card and resolved them in order, it's the end of the round. And then we would see what position everybody is in. So we would look first, and this is going to be the blue card is going to be first. They would rearrange and be first in the next player order. If it's close, you would basically take this ruler, you would place it on the binoculars, and you would start to sweep this to see which card it hits next. So blue is first, then it would be red, then white. If in case it's close and you can't quite tell, usually you can tell, but if it's close, you can use that ruler. So in this case, it's going to be blue, then red, then white, black, yellow, and green. At this point, if you have less than 3 cards, you'll be drawing back up depending on which place you're in. If you're in places 1, 2, or 3, you'll draw green cards until you have 3. If you're in 4, 5, or 6, you'll be drawing red cards until you have 3. And so here we've done that to reflect the current standings, and then we would start a new round with obviously blue going first. Now let's go over the different effects that you may see on the cards that you can activate optionally before your acceleration. First is steer. This allows you to move to an adjacent empty spot before you move. So in this case, let's say it was blue player's turn, they could move to here. Now you have to go to a different lane. You can't go in the same lane. It's got to be adjacent, you got to be next to it, and it has to be empty, and then they would be forced to now move 1. If there's no adjacent empty spaces, then that has no effect. The bomb effect allows you to take a bomb token from the supply and place it into an adjacent empty spot. If there are no adjacent empty spots, then it has no effect. So maybe you could place it like maybe here because the white card is going to be coming down here. Now if there are no bomb tokens left, you take the furthest one behind everything and use that one. The next one we'll talk about is a missile. Let's say it's the black player's turn and they fire a missile. Missiles always go straight line in the lane that you're in. And so in this case, it would hit the red car. And if you hit a car, that player takes 1 damage. If the first thing it hits is a boulder, it gets removed from the game. If the first thing it hits is a bomb, the bomb explodes and you resolve that. If that missile goes through 3 of these different checkpoints without hitting anything, it stops and nothing happens. The next one is a repair. You basically repair your car and you get 1 damage back, moving the heart 1 space to the right. If you are already full when you play this, it has no effect. If you play a card with a star, you can move your star up 1 spot. These are going to be special abilities that we'll talk about in just a moment. If your star happens to be at the top when you play this, it has no effect. Now these special abilities are different for each of the characters, and in general, how you play them is you can use this ability where the star is before or after you play your card for the turn. You cannot play them in between the effect and the acceleration, but you can play them before or after you play the card. Now, the bottom ones, level 1s, are typically giving you one of the actions that are in the game or one of the effects. In this case, this is a missile, so you would use that just like the missile, and all the other characters have something similar, but it's usually one of the effects that are on the cards that you've already learned about. A second level is always pretty much play 1 additional card, basically getting a different turn. And the third level is usually different for each of the characters. Just follow the text that's on that to do that. Whenever you do any of these special abilities, the star goes down to the bottom. So if I enacted this and I played 1 additional card, this would go all the way down here. So this continues until somebody has gotten past the end flag. Now once this happens, that means it's the last round. However, if more than 1 player is able to get past the flag, the winner is going to be the one who is the furthest, just as if you were setting up a new round. In this case, yellow would have won the game, but if green was the only one there, then green would have won. If you'd like to make the game simpler for kids, you can remove the star and not use special abilities during the game, so obviously these don't go up when you go off track. Also, anytime you play a card with a star, essentially you can add 2 to your acceleration movement. When playing a card, normally you have to use the special ability before movement. You can play a variant where you can play the special ability before or after movement, but you can still never play it during movement. Once you're familiar with the game, you can make your own custom tracks. You just need to make sure it's a closed course. You can use any of the many tiles. This is only some of them in the game. And remember, they're double-sided and some of them have special things that go along with them. Some boards need to be placed next to each other in order to be played because they can never be played on their own. You can add even more excitement to the game with boosts, and you'll place these boosts in between two tiles, and then if a car goes there on its own movement, it cannot be by its first or third level special power, but if it moves there, essentially we'll take the top card from the sprint deck, and they will move that many more. Now, because when they get to this, they stop, and they draw the card, and then they'd move one more. Now, they can't also activate this by being crashed into it as well. If you're playing with 5 or less players, you can play with bots, and these essentially are computerized players that make the game quite chaotic. At the beginning of the game, they get placed after all of the human players, and then when it's that player's turn, that's the bot, they draw the top card of the deck depending on where they are in the position standing. And when they play the card, certain things will happen. If let's say the bot is green, if they get a missile card, they fire a missile as normal. They get a bomb card, they place a bomb directly behind them at the first place that is empty, so it might be not the adjacent place like this. If they get a star, they move 2 extra spots, just as if you're playing the simplified game. If they get a steer card, they always try to move closer to the judge, which is here, so this place would steer here. If this was not available, they would try to steer here. If that's not available, then they don't steer. And if they get a repair, they repair as normal. 2 of the boards have these lightning bolts for teleporting. When you're using one of these boards, you must use both of them. Then you're going to take some counters and shuffle them up and place them on the lightning bolts. And when coming into this board, as soon as you hit one of these numbers, you move to the corresponding number on the other teleportation board. And for missiles and going off track, these lanes are the same as where you would be when you get to the 3 of the other board. Boards 4 and 8 on the B side create a landslide. You must place them just like this. If you go through a bolt on either of these boards, you're going to roll the die. If you get a 3 or a 4, you can place one boulder in either of these 2 red zones. If you roll a 5 or a 6, you actually get to place 2 boulders in both of the red zones. Now you can place these in occupied spots, so if you hit a car, the car takes damage like normal. If you hit a bomb, the bomb explodes like normal. When playing with boards 6 and 7B, they must be played together. They must be placed next to each other so that the lake makes one lake. You also need to put together the bridge. If the race is going this way and you're going up, you go from here. Your next spot from here can be up here, and then you're going across. When you end your turn on the bridge, you'll roll the die. If the die is equal to the number of cars here or less, you fall into the lake and take a damage. You'll start your turn from here, and you have to go the long way through. Board 5B is the Geyser. You'll see them all around here. When you go through or move on to one of these lightning bolts, you roll the die. If you get a 1, you get 1 damage, and your movement and turn ends immediately. If you roll a 2 or a 3, you'll suffer 1 damage, but you complete your movement and turn as normal. And if you roll a 4, 5, or 6, you go through it unscathed. Board 9B is a volcano. This red is magma. Anytime on your turn you go through a lightning bolt, all cars, including you if you're on a red spot, any of them on a red magma spot have to roll the die. If they roll a 1, they get 2 damage. If they roll a 2, 3, or 4, you get 1 damage. And if you roll a 5 or a 6, you evade the lava stream. Board 10B is the dark jungle. When you hit this lightning bolt, you're going to move right into there and stop your turn. Other cars can be in this clearing. You do not cause an accident there, and there cannot be any bombs or boulders in that clearing area. When you begin your turn in one of these clearing areas, you're going to roll the die. If you get a 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're stuck, and you just go to the next clearing area. However, if you get a 5 or 6, you get to go to the lightning bolt outside of the jungle. Missiles themselves hit this and go directly right to here. Boards 11 and 12B must be played together. You can't play them separately, and they must be placed in this orientation. You'll take the barbed snout figure and you'll place it on the red paw. Now, anytime a car goes through 1 or more of these lightning bolts, they're going to roll the die, and they can move this figure this number or less. They'll move on these little foot spots. They can't double back or go on a spot they've already been that turn. As the snout moves, if it hits obstacles, it interacts with them. A boulder will get taken off the board. The car itself will suffer 1 damage. If it ends its turn, they can be in the same spot if this car did not go off track. If this goes into a bomb, the bomb explodes like normal, resolves as normal. This takes a damage and then moves back to the red paw. If a car crashes into it, it has to stop as if it were a boulder. It takes 1 damage. You can also use the bridge using the non-lightning bolt side to join any 2 boards like this. And in this case, I have them in the middle lanes. And when this car is here, if it's going straight, the ramp brings these lanes together, and then they're on the bridge going across and then coming across here. And the missiles go through the bridge and come off on the middle lane. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into the game without having to read the rule book. get you to the fun quicker. And if you have more questions about the rules, I'm going to put a link in the description of the video. Go ahead and place your questions there. This is a great location because not only will I see them and be able to respond to them, but so will the publisher.